You bet your ass I'm wearing a Sailor Moon shirt. The Matrix Reloaded is a sequel to one of the best movies ever made. I love the first Matrix. It's one of my favorite movies. I have reviewed it before, but I want to talk about Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions. Why? Well, because John Wick is coming out soon and Keanu Reeves is in that film as well as Laurence Fishburne. So this is the perfect time for me to fill in the gaps in my Matrix trilogy reviews and talk about the two films I have not yet reviewed. The first Matrix was hugely impactful on me and my friends. We made a ton of Matrix short films. In my review of the first Matrix, which by the way there's going to be a link for at the end of this video, I showed you an embarrassing clip from one of our earliest short films that was definitely attributing the Matrix. I'm going to do that again in Reloaded and Revolutions because why the hell not? And that's going to be the end of this video. Let's talk about Matrix Reloaded. This was one of my most anticipated movies ever. I couldn't wait for this movie. The trailers looked amazing. All of the cast was coming back. The Wachowskis were going to return to direct and write. Everything was just poised for incredible success because The Matrix was so damn good that it was hard to believe that the same people could possibly make anything that was bad. It just couldn't happen. The Matrix Reloaded was going to be perfect. It was going to be the greatest movie ever. It was going to be a transcendent movie experience. It was going to take us to the heavens and back again. The ultimate question of life was going to be answered by The Matrix Reloaded. Everything was just going to come into focus, and this film was going to take us to Valhalla and back, and everything was going to be amazing. And it kind of was disappointing. A lot of people compare The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions to the Star Wars prequels by saying that they simply were just vastly disappointing movies, too focused on effects and less focused on a good story. I personally don't view them that harshly. They are disappointing, yes, absolutely. They're nowhere near as good as that first film. But when you go into a film expecting everything to be perfection, well then it's really tough for anything to meet your expectations and you will likely leave disappointed no matter what. There are a lot of things I like about Matrix Reloaded. I think it did a lot of things really right. I think it actually did a handful of things better than the first Matrix, albeit a very small handful, but there are some things in this film that are better. For one, Zion. It's a real breathing place in this film, occupied with hundreds of people, and you actually get to see it. You see its operation, you understand how it works, and this entire place that was only referenced in the first Matrix as this place we were supposed to really care about is now really fleshed out and Reloaded, and you get a sense of desperation, of urgency in these people because the machines are burrowing to their city and they're going to be there very soon. So a war between the last remaining humans and the machines is on the horizon, and Morpheus and Trinity are some of the only people remaining who genuinely believe in the one. Neo, played by Keanu Reeves. So the fact that we get to see a living, breathing, workable Zion in this film definitely is better than the first, because in the first it was just like, hey, Zion's important, okay? Well, why is it important? Because it is. Okay, so maybe not a handful of things better. Probably just the Zion thing. Yeah. Just about everything else in Reloaded is not as good as the first, so let's just stop comparing it to the first for now and just talk about the film. What I like about this movie, the action sequences that are in camera. My favorite action scene in this movie is easily the Chateau sword fight. This is entirely in camera for the most part, and it is really well choreographed, very intense, and Keanu Reeves just kicks so much ass in this scene, and really this whole movie. He does so much, as usual, of the fight choreography and stunts on his own. Say what you will about him as an actor, but as a physical actor, he's one of the best working today. He throws himself into these scenes, and he makes it believable. All of the in-camera stuff during the highway chase is super fun. A lot of really white-knuckled sequences there. And in possibly the most famous scene in the movie, which has become known as the Burly Brawl, where Neo fights a ton of clones of Smith. The stuff that's in camera, where it's actually Keanu Reeves and all these clones, that's awesome. You kind of watch it and your mouth starts to drop a little bit and you just realize how much work and effort was put into these sequences, and you really have to sit back and give them a round of applause for all the things they were able to do in this movie. Because if you've ever picked up a camera and tried to make a movie, it's hard. It is hard work. And when you see this film and all of the effort and care that was put into those technical aspects of it, you really do have to give them some praise for that. Notice that I keep saying the in-camera stuff is great, because it is. The CG stuff, wow, they went too far. There's a time period in Hollywood during the 2000s decade where they were just like, let's just make fully CGI people and everyone's gonna buy it. Movies like Blade 2 used a fully rendered digital Wesley Snipes and it looked bad. Terminator 3 at the time had Arnold hanging from the back of this crane and it just looks so unrealistic and you don't buy it for a minute. By far though, the worst offense of this is The Matrix Reloaded. I have grown to call the Smiths in this movie balloon people because that's what they look like. And in the most mind-blowingly awful sequence in this movie, Neo jumps on top of all of the Smiths' heads. And this is a fully digital sequence and it just looks bad. Where the first movie had a smaller budget and everything really had to be done with expert care and there couldn't be too much CGI in regards to creating people. They always had to show real people doing this or at least insert a real person into a scenario. This movie just has fully rendered digital people just flying everywhere and it is no longer convincing. And to be honest, when I first saw this in 2003, it really didn't convince me then either. It was always very noticeable. Also, what's really lacking from these action sequences is a sense of pain. Everyone feels like a superhero. In the first film, you kind of felt like Neo was getting his ass handed to him and that he could actually die. It was dirty, dust flew off of people when they fought, and in this movie it's so glossy and clean and you barely see any blood, you don't really get the sense that anyone's actually hurting each other. That's my little rant on the special effects of this movie. There's a lot of really great sequences, as I said, but whenever it starts to rely too much on CGI, it just doesn't hold up anymore. And as I said, it didn't really hold up that well for me, even in 03. Reloaded is that rare film that can actually be viewed in two different ways. It can be viewed as a straightforward popcorn film with a lot of great kung fu and action sequences, and a lot of teenagers, myself included back in 03, were perfectly fine with that. But it can also be viewed in a far deeper way. There's a lot of analysis to be given to this movie once you learn of things in the past when Neo encounters the Architect, and the Architect starts to spill all the details about the former incarnations of the Matrix and Neo's choices and the various paths that he can choose to take. And all of these things can be attributed to a lot of religious things today. There's Buddhist references in this film, there's references to the Bible and Christianity. That gets really heavy-handed in Revolutions, which we'll talk about when we review that film. But for me personally, if you get too into that with Reloaded and Revolutions, you can kind of fall into that trap that I've seen a lot of people fall into with the prequels of Star Wars. You start overanalyzing something, you start getting really deep into it until you become obsessed with it, and all of a sudden you're seeing all these things and you convince yourself that it's this amazing masterpiece when it's really not. Now, I'm not saying there's nothing to discover in this film, that there's nothing under the surface, because there is. The Wachowskis have always been filmmakers that definitely try. Even in their bad films, like really bad films like Jupiter Ascending, you can tell they're giving effort. They're not just going to approach something and half-ass it. They might make a shitty movie, but they definitely try. So there are things in Reloaded to discover. It's just that I think a lot of people have taken it way too far and built an entire world around it that maybe the Wachowskis weren't even going for. So let's get back to talking about the filmmaking. One thing about this movie that I think is awesome and just really great is the score. I've listened to the score I don't even know how many times. Tons of times. The stuff that Don Davis did with Juno Reactor in this film created some really awesome beats. I love the score for this movie. The soundtrack is banging. Interestingly, the original score was actually far different. Don Davis composed music that was much more cinematic, but the Wachowskis wanted more of a techno edge, so they hired Juno Reactor to write over that music, as well as Rob Dugan to compose a completely new song for the Chateau sword fight. For me, The Matrix Reloaded is a film that I can watch every once in a while. Every time I watch it, I'm just a little disappointed because I always remember how excited I was and how it just didn't live up to that. But you can watch it for its amazing action sequences, the in-camera stuff, the CG stuff. You just watch it and you're like, oh my god, what are they doing? Like, there's even a part where they have domino toppling sound effects and bowling pin sound effects. It's like they knew it was shit and they were just making it Looney Tunes. But taken as a straight popcorn film, you can enjoy The Matrix Reloaded on that level. I respect them for trying with some of the deeper stuff, but unfortunately there's a lot of unanswered questions that still even Revolutions weren't really explored enough. Like Agent Smith, Hugo Weaving, just kind of returning, and he's like, "You set me free, Mr. Henderson. Surprised to see me?" Oh, so he set you free. Okay. Well, that explains everything. In the end, to me, The Matrix Reloaded is not terrible. It's a watchable film. But the idea of a sequel to The Matrix being just watchable is so sad. I'm going to give The Matrix Reloaded a B-. It's okay. All these years later, it's fine. It didn't reach the heights that it was going for, and it relied on CG way too much. So guys, look forward to my review of The Matrix Revolutions coming very soon before John Wick Chapter 2, which I can't wait to see. Oh my gosh, hope that's great. Guys, thank you once again for watching, and if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized. The year 2003. The characters, Neo and a squid that looks suspiciously phallic. Here's a clip from one of our earliest and most embarrassing short films, Neo vs. Squid.